Black twins called jungle kids by bullies. Unaware, they are black belt fighters. The bus hissed as it came to a stop, brakes squealing, steam rising from under the wheels. From the doorway, two teenagers stepped down slowly, tall, silent, and calm. A boy and a girl, twins. Their skin rich and dark like polished mahogany, their eyes alert but soft. They looked around without saying a word. Behind them, their mother followed, carrying just 2 bags and a long-wrapped item she held. With both hands, the town was quiet. Too quiet. A few people near the diner across the street paused mid-conversation, forks halfway to their mouths, staring. Not kindly. A woman leaned toward another and said loud enough to be heard, "Those must be the new kids from Africa." No one smiled. No one waved. No one welcomed them. The boy adjusted the strap on his backpack. The girl squared her shoulders and took one deep breath. Their mother placed a hand on both of their backs and whispered, "Head up, walk proud." And that's what they did. Without a word, the 3 of them started down the cracked sidewalk. Eastville had never seen kids like them. And Eastville wasn't good with new things. Especially not when new things walked like warriors. The next morning, they stood at the gates of Eastville High, 3 stories of red brick, narrow windows, and old gossip. Students already crowded outside, grouped up like they always were, loud, staring, whispering. The twins didn't react. They didn't look away. Just walked right through it all. Inside, the front office secretary barely looked up from her computer. "You the transfer students?" "Yes," said the girl softly. "Io and Amara." The woman frowned, pulled out their schedules, and slid them across the desk without saying another word. First bell's in 5. Their first class was biology. The teacher looked up from his roll sheet like he was reading something from another planet. Oh, Io, he corrected softly. The teacher grunted and moved on. "Amira?" "Amara," she said clearly, with a calm voice. A few students laughed. Someone muttered, "What kind of names are those?" Amara kept her face still. Her hand under the desk tightened slightly. Io reached his foot toward hers under the table. A gentle tap. A signal. Not now. Not yet. By lunchtime, the whispers had turned into open stares. Students watched them like exhibits. The twins sat alone in the far corner of the cafeteria, opening containers of food their mother had made. Fufu, vegetable stew, something warm and familiar in a cold new place. A boy nearby wrinkled his nose. "Ugh, what is that?" His friend laughed. "Looks like jungle food." Then a banana peel landed near their feet. A tall boy in a varsity jacket stood nearby, smirking. "Oops, dropped something for the jungle kids." The entire table behind him burst into laughter. The girl with him, blonde ponytail high and perfect, added with a fake smile, "Nice outfits. Do they sell those at the zoo?" The twins didn't speak, didn't flinch. Io calmly continued eating. Amara's jaw tensed slightly, her fingers tightening on her fork. Under the table, Io gently touched her wrist. Just once. Just enough. "Thank you for the warm welcome," Amara said calmly, her voice even and her accent suddenly thicker. "Very illuminating." The boy blinked, confused. That wasn't the reaction he expected. The bell rang. Everyone scattered. But the silence the twins carried with them stayed behind. That night, they didn't talk much at dinner. Their mother asked about their day, and they answered only what needed answering. Later, when the house was quiet and the lights were low, they pushed the furniture to the side of their room. Without a word, they tied blindfolds over their eyes. Then they moved. A rhythm, a flow, a dance only the 2 of them knew. Each kick, each block, perfectly timed. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. In that quiet room, two shadows moved in harmony. Not students, not victims, fighters. The town saw them as quiet, strange, outsiders. But they didn't know what that silence was hiding, and they didn't know what was coming. Because this story wasn't about two kids being bullied. It was about two warriors, waiting for the right moment to rise. The next morning, the sky was gray and heavy, like it already knew what kind of day it was going to be. At school, things didn't get better. If anything, the stares were sharper, the jokes were louder, the whispers were crueler. The twins walked down the hallway like always, shoulders back, faces calm, but every step they took left an echo behind. People moved aside, not out of respect, but curiosity. The kind that felt like heat on your back, the kind that made you feel watched. "What's up with them?" someone whispered. "They don't even talk to anyone." Creepy. Io and Amara said nothing. Later that day in gym class, Connor, the same boy who'd thrown the banana peel, called out, "Hey, you two train with monkeys back home or what?" His voice bounced off the walls of the gym like it wanted everyone to hear. Laughter followed, but still, the twins didn't react. Coach made them run laps, and while the others sprinted and joked, the twins moved like clockwork, steady, even-paced, completely in sync. People noticed, but they didn't understand what they were seeing. Amara's hair moved with every turn, tied back neatly. Io's breathing stayed controlled. They didn't race. They didn't fall behind either. They ran like they were practicing for something no one else could see. In the locker room, someone had drawn a banana on Amara's locker with black marker, and below it, one word written in all caps: wildlife. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just wiped it off with a towel, but her hand was shaking. That night at home, their mother noticed the tension in the room. She didn't ask questions. She simply lit a candle, placed it in the middle of the table, and said, "This flame is from our home. No one can blow it out but you." They sat there for a few minutes in silence, letting it burn. Then she brought out something wrapped in cloth. It was a drum, hand-carved with symbols etched along its sides. Their family's drum, from generations back. "This is for when you need to speak without shouting," she said, placing it gently in front of them. "Let your silence say something." Later, that night, while their mom slept, Io and Amara quietly moved their bedroom furniture again. They didn't speak. They just made space. And then, blindfolded, they began their training. You wouldn't know they were only 17 if you saw them move. Their bodies weren't just strong, they were precise. Every motion told a story. Every step held years of discipline. They had learned it from their father back home. A quiet man, but a powerful one. He taught them how to move, how to breathe, how to hold still when others lost control. "How you fight," he once said, "is who you are when everything else is taken away." The next day at school, things escalated. At lunch, the twins sat at their usual corner table, unwrapping food their mother had packed. The smells, spiced stew, soft plantains, made them feel closer to home. But across the cafeteria, Connor stood again, louder this time. "Look, Jungle Kids brought their zoo snacks again?" The same blonde girl, Jessa, snorted, then added, "Bet they used to eat with their hands." More laughter. This time, someone dropped a plastic monkey toy onto their table. It had tape across its chest. The label read, "Amara's cousin." The cafeteria erupted with laughter. Io didn't move. Amara's eyes locked onto the toy for a long moment. Her hands curled into fists beneath the table. She could feel it building inside her. The heat, the shame, the urge to explode. But then she felt it. A single touch. Io's fingers brushed her wrist. A silent message. "Breathe." She did. And then, without a word, she picked up the toy and placed it gently back on Connor's table as she walked past. "Thank you for the gift," she said, her voice calm, steady. "It says more about you than me." And just like that, the laughter stopped. It wasn't a comeback. It was a mirror. The twins walked out of the cafeteria while everyone else just watched. Something had shifted. Later that day, Amara was in the library scanning the shelves for a history book when a quiet voice spoke behind her. "You probably want the second shelf. Bottom row." She turned. It was a pale girl with copper hair and nervous eyes. She looked like she'd been trying to say something for a while. "I'm Lena," she said quickly. "I know who you are. I mean, everyone's talking." Amara raised an eyebrow. "And what are they saying?" Lena hesitated. "That you're weird, different, that you don't belong." Amara didn't respond. "But," Lena added, softer now, "I think they're scared of you, because you don't react, and I think that's power." There was a pause. Then Amara smiled. Not big, but real. "Thanks," she said. "That's the nicest thing I've heard since I got here." And just like that, a small door opened. Not to friendship, not yet, but to something. That night, as they trained again, Amara told Io about Lena. "She's different." "Maybe we're not alone here," he replied. They moved through their routines, faster this time. Lighter on their feet, more fire in their steps. They still said little, but in their silence, something was starting to rise. It started with a torn poster. Io was walking through one of the back hallways between classes. The kind of hallway no one really used. The kind that smelled like old paint and silence. He wasn't lost. He never got lost. But he liked to know. Every corner of a building. Their father always said, "The first rule of surviving a battlefield is knowing the ground beneath your feet." There was an old bulletin board near the janitor's closet. Most of the papers were faded or covered in dust. One of them was half ripped, just the edge of a silhouette, someone in a fighting pose. Underneath, in small print, he could barely make out the words, "After hours." It tugged at something in him. He didn't know what. He snapped a photo and kept walking. That night, he showed it to Amara. "This looks like some kind of martial arts club," she said, narrowing her eyes. "But no one's mentioned it." "Exactly," Io said. "And the poster wasn't near the gym. It was hidden." They didn't say much else, just exchanged a look. That was enough. The next day, Lena met Amara near her locker, holding a small, spiral notebook against her chest. "I've been thinking about something," she said, her voice low. "My brother, before he disappeared, he was talking about some program. Said it was invite only, something for top athletes. He was excited at first, then scared." "What kind of program?" Amara asked. Lena shook her head. "He never said. Just that it was happening. After hours." The words hit like a drop of cold water. Amara looked at Io, who'd just walked up behind them. "That phrase keeps coming up," she said softly. Lena hesitated. "There's more," she said, glancing around. He started getting messages, anonymous ones, directions to secret meetings. Then one day, he was just gone. School said he transferred. My parents said he went to live with our uncle. But he never said goodbye. He would have said goodbye. Something in her eyes trembled, but she didn't let it fall. Amara nodded, slowly. "We'll help you find out what happened," she said. "But it's going to take more than questions." That night, they made a decision. They'd go back to the school. Not during the day, after hours. They waited until nearly midnight. Their mother was asleep. The house was quiet. Dressed in dark clothes and sneakers, they slipped out the back window like shadows. Just like their father had taught them, the school was still. No lights on, no alarms, just the distant hum of street lamps and the quiet song of crickets. They knew exactly where to go, back to that same hallway, near the janitor's closet. There, behind the bulletin board, they found it, a small latch built into the wall. It looked like part of the old paneling, but when Amara pressed it, the board clicked forward slightly. Io pulled it open carefully. Behind it, a staircase. Narrow, steep, cold. It led to a basement that wasn't on any map they'd seen. No lights, just the smell of sweat, dust, and something else. Something metallic. Blood? They moved cautiously, flashlights low. What they found made them freeze. A hidden room, mats on the floor, steel cages pushed against the walls, a whiteboard with initials and numbers, match scores, a camera set up in the corner, and on the far wall, a banner. Private, invitational showcase, discipline, glory, control. "This isn't a club," Amara whispered. "This is a fight ring." They began taking pictures, everything they could. Io studied the matchboard. Some of the initials had red circles around them. Others were crossed out. He didn't know what it meant, but he felt the pressure building in his chest. Then Amara pointed to something near the door, a shelf of files. Just one was open. Inside were profiles, photos of students, stats, medical records, notes like fast reflexes, easily influenced, ready for next phase. This wasn't just underground. This was organized. This was planned. They replaced everything carefully, exactly as they found it. As they stepped back into the hallway, locking the panel behind them, the air felt heavier, like the building itself had a secret it didn't want to share. Back in their room, they didn't speak. They just sat side by side on the floor, breathing in the dark. They weren't just being bullied, they were being watched. The next day, they sat down with Lena in the library and showed her what they'd found. Her face turned pale. "That's what my brother was part of," she said, barely above a whisper. "He told me once, if something ever happened to him, to follow the whispers, not the rules. I thought he was just being dramatic." "You weren't wrong," Amara said, gently. "He was warning you." Lena opened her notebook. "I've been tracking some things, student transfers, changes in the lunch schedule, gym room usage. I think the fights happen on certain nights when the camera system gets shut off." "Who's behind this?" Io asked. "I don't know. Yet," Lena said. "But I think Connor's involved, and maybe more than just a student." They nodded. This was bigger than bullying. This was more than just schoolyard cruelty. They were standing at the edge of something dark, and now they had a choice. Step back or step in, and the twins had never been the type to step back. By the time Friday rolled around, Eastville High felt like a loaded spring, tightly wound and waiting to snap. The whispers about the twins were no longer whispers. They were stares in the hallway, half jokes muttered just loud enough to be heard. And under all of it was a rising tension, like people sensed something was coming, but didn't know what. In the cafeteria, things boiled over. Amara had just sat down with her lunch, homemade jollof rice and grilled chicken wrapped neatly in a banana leaf. The smells reminded her of home, of peace, of her father's slow humming on Sunday afternoons. Across the room, Connor stood, loud, confident, like always. "Look!" he shouted, pointing toward their table. "The Jungle Kids brought their leftovers. From the safari again." A few laughed. Not as many this time. Jessa followed him, arms crossed, eyes cold. "Maybe if we feed them enough bananas, they'll start doing tricks." Amara froze mid-bite. Her jaw locked. The fork in her hand trembled slightly. Io said nothing. His hand gently brushed her wrist, the signal they'd always used. Breathe. Control. But this time, she couldn't. She stood up slowly, calmly, walked across the cafeteria with her head high and her tray in hand. Then she placed her tray down on Connor's table, right in front of him. "Eat," she said. He stared at her. "What? You wanted to taste what you mock. So eat," she repeated, her voice level. "Otherwise, stop speaking about things you'll never understand." The entire cafeteria fell silent. Connor laughed, but it was forced. Loud, without weight. "You think you're scary?" he said, stepping up. "You and your creepy twin act? You're nothing but a joke." That's when he said it. The line that changed everything. "I bet your little brother screams like a girl when he gets hit." The room tensed. Without thinking, Amara slapped him. Not hard, not even violently, but the sound echoed. Connor staggered back, stunned. Students gasped. Some dropped their forks. Someone whispered, "She hit him." Amara didn't back away. She looked him in the eye and said clearly, "Don't ever speak about my family again." That's when Principal Stone appeared, drawn by the sound. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Connor pointed, still rubbing his face. "She attacked me." Dozens had watched what really happened, but no one said a word. "Amara Moyo," the principal said, not even asking for her version. "My office, now." She was suspended for 3 days. No questions, no defense. Back at home, their mother listened quietly as Amara explained. When she finished, Mama simply said, "Control is not weakness, but sometimes silence stops working." That night, Io stayed late at school to finish a chemistry lab. On his way out, he cut through the parking lot behind the gym and saw something that made him stop cold. A sleek black SUV had pulled up near the entrance. Inside was Mayor Roar. Connor's father. Standing next to him, Principal Stone. Io ducked behind a tree. The window of the SUV rolled down. "They're asking questions," Mayor Roar was saying. "The African kids, they're sniffing around places they shouldn't be." "They're just teenagers," the principal replied. "They won't figure it out. They're dangerous," the mayor snapped. "I want them quiet, scared, broken. I don't care how you do it." Io froze, the words sinking into him like cold rain. It wasn't just bullying, it was bigger. It was planned. He slipped away silently, heart racing. He had to tell Amara. The next day, Lena met them behind the library. "I've been going through old records," she said, breathless. "Listen to this. Every student who's gone missing had top physical performance scores. Track, wrestling, even dance." She opened her notebook, showing pages of names, dates, and matches. "I also found something else." She pulled out a small USB. "This has video footage. One of the AV club kids gave it to me last semester. He said it was nothing. But I watched it again last night." The footage showed a hallway at night. A heated conversation between Lena's brother Damon and Coach Bennett. No sound. But then the lights flickered, and Damon vanished. 1 second there. Next second, gone. Coach Bennett fixed his tie and walked away like nothing happened. "This is the last time my brother was seen at this school," Lena said, eyes wet but burning. "Whatever's going on here, they erased him." The weight of the truth hit them like a stone. This wasn't about bullies anymore. It wasn't just mean words or cafeteria jokes. It was a machine. One that found strong kids, used them, erased them. Io looked at the others. His voice was steady. "We don't run." Amara nodded. "We expose it." Lena added, "We burn it down." They didn't smile, didn't celebrate. They just turned and walked away together. 3 shadows moving. In the late afternoon light, tomorrow would come with a new plan. One that would take them closer to the heart of Eastville's secret. But tonight, they trained like their lives depended on it. Because now, they just might. By Monday, everything felt different. Not louder, not more obvious, just heavier. Students moved differently in the hallways. Some looked away when they saw the twins. Some stared longer than usual, as if trying to figure something out. The usual jokes and noises had faded, not from kindness, but uncertainty. Connor was quieter too, but his eyes had changed. He wasn't laughing anymore. He was watching, closely. It wasn't fear. It was something worse. Obsession, Io could feel. It during PE, where Connor started shadowboxing at the edge of the court. Every move he made was pointed at Io. Fast jabs, aggressive pacing, chest puffed out like a predator waiting for a reason. That afternoon, as Io and Amara walked home, Lena rushed to catch up with them. Her backpack bounced awkwardly, her face pale but determined. "I have to show you something," she said, pulling them behind a row of lockers near the back gate. From inside her bag, she took out a small flash drive and a notebook packed with printed screenshots and handwritten notes. "Last night, I was looking into the school's archived data, the files my brother had copied before he disappeared. It's worse than we thought." She opened her laptop and clicked play. The video was grainy but clear enough. It showed a dark basement, a fight in progress. Young fighters in headgear, some barely recognizable behind sweat and bruises. On the edge of the screen, men in suits cheered silently, exchanging envelopes of cash. And then came the worst part. Coach Bennett entered the ring and gave one of the fighters something, a vial. The student took it without hesitation. Within minutes, his movement changed. Faster, sharper, less human. "Drugs," Lena whispered. "They're using something. Probably to enhance reflexes, suppress emotion. My brother was on it. That's why he looked empty." Amara stared at the screen. "They're turning students into machines." Io leaned in. "And making money off the fights." "Not just fights," Lena added, flipping through her notebook. "The best fighters, the ones who win over and over, they don't just transfer. They disappear. No school records, no photos, nothing. And then suddenly, their families move. New cars, new houses. It's like they're being paid off." Amara's voice dropped. "Human trafficking." They let the word sit for a moment. No one wanted to be the one to say it, but it had to be said. Io closed the laptop. "We can't do this alone anymore." Later that week, they approached Tyler Williams. He wasn't like Connor. He never joined the bullying. He didn't speak much. But he was always there, watching. And when Amara caught him looking at Io during class, his face didn't hold hate. It held guilt. They waited until school let out, then stopped him outside, near the track field. "We know you've seen things," Io said calmly. "You know something, and we need your help." Tyler's mouth opened slightly. He glanced around, then stepped back. "I'm not part of it. I never agreed to." "We're not blaming you," Amara interrupted. "We're asking you." Tyler swallowed, then nodded. "Come with me." He led them down a back hallway, through a side door, and into the school's old equipment room. Inside, past rows of dusty hurdles and broken bleachers, he pulled up a section of carpet revealing a hidden USB port under the floor. "I've been collecting footage," he said, "from the hidden cameras they don't know I found. I wanted to go to the police, but my dad's the town judge, and he's close with Mayor Rohr." He took a breath. "If I speak, my family pays the price." "Then help us speak," Lena said softly, stepping forward. "We don't need you to burn the system. Just light the fuse." Tyler nodded. Over the next few days, the four of them worked in secret. They mapped out the underground ring's hidden rooms, connected names to initials on the match lists, tracked which students had vanished, and which staff members were involved. Then came the breakthrough. One night, Lena got a message, anonymous, one line, "Spring Showcase, Friday, 11 p.m. Bring the twins." Attached was an ornate digital invite, sent from a secure, encrypted email. "We've been noticed," Io said. "It's a trap," Lena added, "but also an opening." They debated all night. Was it too dangerous? Too soon? But in the end, it wasn't about strategy anymore. It was about the ones who were still trapped, like Lena's brother, like the fighters marked for transfer. So they agreed. They would attend the event. They would enter the ring as competitors. And while one part of them fought from inside, the other would expose the truth from above. On the morning of the event, the twins trained longer than usual. In the old warehouse near the tracks, where no one could hear them. Blindfolded, silent, precise. Every move reminded them why they were doing this. Not to show off, not to win a fight, but to end one. Their father's voice echoed in their minds. World expects your rage. Offer it discipline. That's how you win without violence. Back home, Mama noticed the change in them, the way their hands moved, the way they breathed. She didn't ask what they were planning. She just handed Io a strip of old cloth and said, "This was your father's. Tie it only when you're ready to fight with your whole spirit." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, the four of them stood at the edge of a new battlefield. 2 would go inside, 2 would stay outside. All would carry truth, and none of them would walk away unchanged. The invitation had only a time and a promise. Spring Showcase. Friday, 11 p.m. Exceptional talent will be considered for advancement. No address, no rules, no names, just a message laced with power and danger. But the twins were ready. They had spent the entire week preparing, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Their movements were sharper now, their eyes steadier. They no longer reacted. They calculated. They anticipated. And behind them, Lena and Tyler worked in the shadows, building a plan. Tyler had hacked into the event's surveillance system. He couldn't stop the showcase, but he could record it. Every name, every fight, every face in the crowd. Lena compiled the names of students who had vanished. With the evidence they'd gathered and the footage they planned to capture, they would expose everything, if they made it out. That night, just before 10, the twins stood in their living room, dressed in simple black athletic gear. No logos, no brands, just fabric that allowed them to move freely. Their mother sat across from them, holding a small candle between her palms. The flame flickered as she whispered an old chant in their native language, a blessing passed down from her grandmother's grandmother. "Walk with your light," she said. "And remember, the world is loud, but truth is patient. Let it rise when the time is right." They each kissed her forehead, then left without another word. The showcase was held far from town, in a massive abandoned steel mill that hadn't seen real work in 20 years. But tonight, it pulsed with new life and dark money. Luxury cars lined the front gate. Security guards in black stood under floodlights, checking IDs. Most attendees were dressed in sharp suits and cocktail dresses. Some were parents, some were strangers, some were predators hiding behind money and influence. The fighters entered through a separate gate. No greetings, no introductions, just a nod from a guard and a path lit with red lights. Io and Amara were silent, their bodies calm. But inside, fire burned steady. The inside of the mill had been completely transformed. A raised octagonal ring stood at the center, surrounded by layers of seating. Cameras on robotic arms swung silently, capturing every corner of the ring. Spotlights hung from scaffolding above, casting the fighters in eerie halos of white. Tyler and Lena entered through the side, disguised as junior tech assistants. They made their way up to the mezzanine where the control booth sat. "Keep it quiet," Tyler whispered. "As soon as the stream starts, I'll begin copying the files. We've got one shot." Back on the floor, the fighters gathered in a waiting area behind a curtain. Each one wore a black robe with their fight number pinned to their chest. No names. No introductions. Amara was number 6, but Io was number 9. They said nothing to the others. just waited. Focused. A bell rang. Mayor Rohr stepped into the spotlight on a makeshift stage. Tall, sharp suit, cold eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice smooth like oil. "Tonight we present Eastville's finest. Fighters who represent more than strength. They represent obedience, potential, profit." He smiled. "Let the showcase begin." The first two fighters entered. The crowd roared. Bets were placed on digital tablets. The fight was brutal. One student clearly enhanced, the other barely holding his ground. When the match ended, no one checked on the loser. He was dragged away without applause. Amara was called next. Her opponent was bigger, broader. Number 13. As they stepped into the ring, she saw Jessa in the crowd, smiling. Connor sat beside her, arms crossed, chin tilted like a king waiting to see someone fall. The bell rang. Her opponent came fast. Heavy swings, no control. She stepped around him, light, clean, balanced. He struck again. She blocked, redirected, moved like wind wrapping around stone. A few in the crowd laughed. Hit. "Her!" someone shouted. But the moment never came, because she didn't let it. She let him burn himself out, swinging wildly, throwing weight he couldn't control. And when the timing was perfect, when the noise had peaked, she stepped forward and swept him off his feet in one fluid motion. He hit the mat flat, hard. The crowd fell quiet. Amara bowed and walked away. No anger, no pride, just truth. In the tech booth, Tyler whispered, "We're live." Lena clicked a button and all the gathered files, the fights, the evidence, the documents, began uploading in real time to outside servers. "It's working," she whispered. "We just need 10 more minutes." Io's match came next. His opponent? Connor. No number, no robe. Just him, shirtless, jaw clenched, veins pulsing. The crowd erupted. Phones came out. Everyone expected blood. Io stepped into the ring. Calm. Connor didn't wait for the bell. He charged. Punch after punch, each, one faster, stronger. His body was shaking. His eyes were glazed, not from rage, but enhancement. He'd taken the same drug Damon had. Io didn't fight back. He deflected, dodged. His arms barely moved, but every shift was perfect. Connor screamed, "Fight me!" Io stood still. "You're not worth my rage," he said, his voice steady. The crowd gasped. Connor lunged again. This time, Io moved. One clean, fast strike. Not to injure, just to end it. A palm to the chest. Connor dropped like a puppet whose strings had snapped. The arena went silent until screams broke out. Not from the fight, from the tech booth. Footage had appeared on every screen. Stolen fights. Forged transfer documents. Footage of Coach Bennett injecting fighters. Principal Stone laughing with Mayor Rohr. Student faces. Dates. Locations. The crowd panicked. Some tried to flee. The exits were sealed. Lena's voice echoed over the PA. "Everyone here is a witness, and everyone will be held accountable. Mayor." Rohr pushed through the crowd, his face red with fury. "Shut it down! Get security!" But it was too late. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police lights flashed through the steel beams above. The FBI had arrived. In the chaos, the twins found Lena and Tyler and slipped out a side door. Just as the real authorities burst through the front, they didn't wait for applause. They didn't need headlines. They had done what they came to do, and now it was time to finish the story. On their own terms. 3 months had passed since the night the steel mill lit up with sirens and secrets, since fists stopped flying and truth finally started speaking. Eastville wasn't the same anymore. The mayor? Behind bars, awaiting trial on federal charges. The principal? Gone. Stripped of his title and his silence. Coach Bennett? testified under pressure, told the truth, or enough of it. The town that once whispered behind its fences now talked in the open. And for the first time, the twins, once mocked, feared, and called jungle kids, walked the halls with heads turning for a different reason: respect, not because they fought back, but because they did it without losing themselves. Amara stood on the makeshift graduation stage that summer, cap slightly tilted, the morning sun catching the corner of her cheek as she looked out at a sea of students and parents. "I was told silence was power," she said. "And it is, until silence starts to protect the wrong people, until silence starts to cost others their lives." She paused. Somewhere in the second row, Lena smiled, eyes wet, notebook in her lap. "My brother and I came here thinking we had to stay small, stay quiet, but we didn't come to disappear. We came to remember who we were." She looked at her brother in the crowd. "And when we did that, everything changed." The crowd stood when she finished, not because they were told to, but because they knew what it took to get her there and what it had cost her. Lena got into Columbia. Her story, the real one, the one she wrote in the school, paper with trembling hands and too much hope, had gone viral. Not because it was loud, but because it was honest. "My brother is still recovering," she said in one interview. "But I don't want revenge. I want to rebuild. That's the real fight now." She was no longer the girl hiding behind a stack of books. She was the girl telling the story and changing the ending. Damon, her brother, was back. Not completely. Some days were hard. The drugs they'd used on him had left shadows in his memory, gaps he couldn't fill. But he remembered Amara. He remembered the chant. He remembered her saying his name, like it mattered. And that was enough to begin again. He and Lena now volunteered at a youth center on the edge of town, helping kids who felt unseen, unheard, teaching them to defend themselves, not with fists, but with presence. "You can't fight what you don't see," Damon told a small boy during one session. "And sometimes the first fight is just showing up." Connor? He never came back to Eastville High. Some said he'd been sent to a juvenile facility. Others heard whispers of rehab. But one thing was certain: power had changed hands, and it didn't come with threats anymore. It came with truth. As for the twins, they stayed. Everyone expected them to leave, to run from the town that once tried, to break them, but they didn't, because they weren't here to escape. They were here to transform, and that's exactly what they did. Io opened a small martial arts studio in a vacant shop near the town square. The sign above the door was simple: Moyo Dojo, strength with purpose. The first class was small, a mix of kids, some who had once laughed at him, some who had watched and done nothing, and some who had been too afraid to speak, until now. "Don't teach fighting," Io said. "I teach awareness, control, respect. You don't train to win, you train to protect." The walls of the dojo held no trophies, just one photo of him and Amara, blindfolded, mid-kick, bodies in perfect sync. Amara joined him in teaching, but her focus was different. She started a weekly girls' circle, where young women could speak, be heard, and share stories without fear. She called it Firelight. Because, she said, even a single candle breaks the dark. Every week they met in a quiet room at the back of the dojo. No mirrors, no uniforms, just voices. Some shaking, some loud, all important. One girl said she hadn't spoken out in years. Now she leads half the sessions. Their mother, Momoyo, opened a small herbal shop next door. She named it The Root. People came in for teas and balms, but stayed for the wisdom. She didn't advertise. Didn't post online, but somehow the room was always full. Parents, teachers, teenagers with bruises that didn't show. She told them stories, not about pain, but about healing. The wound doesn't make you weak, she'd say, serving tea. It makes you human. And being human, with heart, is the bravest thing of all. One afternoon, as summer turned to fall, the twins stood in the warehouse where they had once trained in secret. The mats were still there. The walls still held marks from their kicks, but it wasn't a hiding place anymore. It was a memory. Should we keep it? Amara asked, running a hand across a wooden beam. Io shook his head. We don't need the old shadows. They turned the lights off together and walked out for the last time. That evening, they joined their mother on the porch. She rocked gently in her chair, the sun setting in soft gold across her face. They sipped tea. No words were needed. But she spoke anyway. People thought I brought you here to escape something, but your father and I knew you were never meant to run. You were meant to reveal. The wind moved gently through the trees. You showed them, she added. What? It means to hold power, without crushing others. She looked at them with eyes full of love, but also clarity. Now teach others. And that's what they planned to do, not with vengeance, but with vision. Not through fear, but through foundation. Not by standing above, but by standing with. Because that was their legacy. Not that they survived, but that they refused to become the thing that tried to silence them, and that, in the end, is what turned them from targets into leaders. From jungle kids into something far more dangerous. Young people who knew who they were and refused to forget it.